August 24, 2010 20:30 Harbin Taiping International Airport. A Henan Airlines Flight 8387 is at the airport waiting for takeoff. The direct flight is EMB 190L2 line technology. The aircraft left the factory in November 2008. By the time it was launched, less than 2 years. Still belongs to a new aircraft. The direct flight route was Harbin to Yichuan. A total of 91 passengers and 5 crew members were on board. The captain of the plane was a 40-year-old complete military, a retired former Air Force pilot. He has 4,251 hours of flight experience. The co-pilot is 27-year-old Zhu Jianzhou. Holds a civil airline commercial pilot license. He has 1,954 hours of flight experience. The plane taxied onto the runway at 8:51 p.m. after receiving takeoff clearance from the tower. The plane took off from Taiping International Airport on time, headed for its destination in Yichuan. Shortly after, Flight 8387 climbed to an altitude of 6,300 meters. The crew successfully started the cruise mode. Since this was a short-haul flight, Flight 8387 made contact with the destination airport, contacted the destination airport 20 minutes after takeoff. 21:16. Fog gradually rose on the runway of Yichuan Lindu Airport. Visibility also dropped to 2.8 km. Our 8387 has just started to fog up on the 5 sides of the fog is a little thick, Captain. The fog on the 5th side is a little thick. 8387 received 21:20 crew completed descent checklist. The aircraft's altitude dropped from 6,300 meters to 2 kilometers. Visibility at that time was 2,800 meters. Our 8387 visibility is now better on runway 30 at this site. The runway lights are visible. It's now 140 degrees over ME peak, Captain. Runway 30 is off-limits. 8387 at 21:28. Tower again reminds the crew that vertical is good but the horizontal visibility is too bad. Keep your eyes open. 21:33. The crew is completing the final procedures for descent. The crew reports to the tower. The tower has issued a landing clearance after the runway can be seen and reminded the crew that the minimum descent altitude cannot be less than 440 meters. The co-pilot reports at 21:36 that we are about to pass through the fog. The captain said confidently, "Don't worry." Then the crew disconnected the autopilot. The crew switched to manual control and started to descend. But what the captain did not expect was, the fog was getting bigger and bigger. He could not see the runway at all. How else could he land? 21:37 The plane crossed the wrong area and dropped to 395 meters. Visibility at this point was 2 kilometers, 2 nautical miles from the airport, but the actual altitude of the plane was only 335 meters. It was 47 meters lower than the standard near vertical altitude. At 21:38. The cockpit voice indicates 50 feet, 40 feet. 30 feet, 20 feet. 10 feet. At this time, the captain of the aircraft, complete military, only then did he realize the seriousness of the altitude. Already does not have the conditions for a safe landing. So he began to pull back the stick desperately, trying to get the plane back in the air, but by now it was too late. The speed of the plane could not be controlled. The plane crashed into a grass field with a loud bang. It did not land on the runway. After the plane hit the ground, the passengers in the cabin were caught off guard and in disarray. But what's worse, the plane soon burst into flames. The passengers on board began to panic. Chief Flight Attendant Lulu was the first to direct passengers to evacuate. His voice was loud, everyone could hear him clearly. There was a lot of smoke in the cabin, the wiring was already burned out, the scene was pitch black, the safety crew and the flight attendants. It was very difficult to transport a dozen passengers to escape. The crew member Lulu was robbed by the smoke to unconscious, never woke up again. Also on board was Lulu's newlywed husband Zhou Binhao, was also choked to death while evacuating the crowd, and they just married a month. The captain of the cockpit was not injured. The co-pilot stayed in his seat with his seatbelt, mouth painful moaning. Quan Jun as the captain of the aircraft neither issued emergency evacuation instructions, neither did he organize the evacuation of passengers. Instead, he opened the left sliding window of the cockpit by himself and escaped from the plane, leaving behind a seriously injured, the co-pilot, who was still wearing his seatbelt. Zhu Jianzhou was moaning in his seat halfway through the evacuation of passengers. There were still 39 passengers who had not been evacuated. A violent explosion occurred in the wreckage of the plane. The final accident resulted in co-pilot Zhu Jianzhou, crew member Zhou Binhao, crew chief Lu Lu and his wife, and 39 passengers were killed. Captain Quan Jun, the safety officer, and 50 passengers survived cause of the accident. The captain did not have the landing conditions to implement the approach. The plane landed in the fog without seeing the runway in any reference point, crossed the minimum descent altitude in extreme weather. He still took a chance, eventually led to bad results. And the captain of the aircraft on duty did not perform the legal duties of the captain. He was directly responsible for the accident. After the plane hit the ground, he did not organize the evacuation of passengers in time. Not to mention the death of his injured colleague. Unauthorized fleeing from his post is not tolerated. This is a serious dereliction of DUT. On December 19, 2014, the final trial results were released. Captain Quan Chuanjuan's behavior is a serious poisonous duty, serious violation of the captain's legal duties, irregular maneuvering and serious consequences. Revoke his flight license in accordance with the law. Dismissal from public office and party membership, and sentenced to 3 years in prison according to law.